You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Doing a little traveling for the JOB, so I'm taking this one remote, but it's good. We're here Tuesday. Got to watch a really good Monday night game last night. I was happy about that. Our Broncos pulled out a big upset over the weekend, Derek. So
Yeah.
I was happy about that. Can't say I'm happy about more injuries. But it's what it is, right? We continue to grind. So overall, I can't complain. So how you doing?
Oh, I'd be better if it weren't for all these darn injuries. I tell you that. Like
Right.
that has been a very interesting deal for the waiver wire. Kind of moving forward and what that's looked like here, but we did have a good weekend, right? Lots of really good games on there. Found it interesting, right? Like it was one of those that as the Chiefs went down, scored, and it was like, oh, well, yep, of course they did. And then I was waiting for the Jacksonville to, Duval that away, and they didn't. They went down there and they actually got a call that wouldn't have anticipated down there in the end zone with that pass interference call right there at the end, and setting that up for another opportunity there. So it was very interesting to see that one kind of play out, and certainly, you're right. We certainly had a good game there, and several other games throughout the weekends, but lots of injuries starting to rack up here with lots of players heading towards the injured reserve, right? That's the thing I've noticed this year too. It seems like players are quicker to head to the IR than maybe used to in years past, right? Like a lot of times, used to seeing that where, injury's not even really necessarily reported in the game. You hear something about or see a report out there or something happen where it's a so-and-so leaving the locker room in a boot, or is going for imaging or something like that, when nothing really reported in game, to then a day later that they're placed on IR. So kind of a very interesting deal with that, right? Like whereas in years past, it seems like we really kind of saw it, teams would take a lot more of a wait and see type of deal. And, Monday, Tuesday, you'd get a little bit of information on that, but almost waiting until that Friday, Saturday to have players head to the IR. So it does seem to be a very interesting thing this year where, we're seeing the reporting happen probably a little bit more a little bit more quickly than used to, and seeing those injured reserve actions taking place, at least it seems much quicker this year, right? Where it's at least kind of nice from the standpoint you can rock and roll that for the waivers a little bit sooner there.
Yeah, exactly. So that definitely helps in that manner. So, do you have me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. It looks like the video is a little frozen, but we're getting the audio clear.
Looks like I'm sleeping.
It does a little bit.
Hold on, we'll see if we can get that fixed. So we'll keep talking. But yes, it definitely is nice to know ahead of time, right? So we know that we're targeting Chargers backfield, right? With Amari and Hampton going down. We know that if you were streaming tight end or waited like I did, Brenton Strange, who was leading the Jaguars in receiving, is no longer an option. And so it just continues to kind of pile on here a little bit. But I don't know. Like I said earlier, we keep grinding. We'll find solutions, but luckily we got good performances out of some of the backups last week, right? Like obviously Rico Dowdle went gangbusters, so that was good. If you needed to spot start him, and you're able to grab him off the waiver wire, Rashad White had himself a good game, got in the end zone against the Seahawks, so that helped. I don't think many people were starting Jake Browning, but if you were in a super flex format, right, Jake Browning finally got you there. Can't say much more what he's going to do in the future with them getting Joe Burrow coming into town.
Flacco.
Joe Flacco, since Joe Burrow's hurt. So we're not sure if we're going to see Jake Browning much anymore, but I mean, it kind of got there. I mean, really the biggest, the backup that didn't get you there was Cooper Rush, right? The Baltimore Ravens just completely laid a turd. So that was a little disappointing. They didn't even really seem to put up a fight against the Houston Texans. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but we're great. One thing I wanted to ask you, did you, I'm assuming you did, but I guess what were your thoughts on Mbuka and JSN going back
Oh,
in that Tampa Bay Seattle game? Was that a thing of beauty?
that was awesome to watch. And it was what was interesting too, right? Like we saw those two go at it on the field. Alex and I had the head-to-head matchup in the Good Old Boys League over the weekend. He had JSN on his squad. I had Mbuka on my squad, and so we also got to see it play out there as well, which was very interesting to see that one come through. But yeah, those two just kind of dueling it out. That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it was just second half, right? Deep shot after deep shot, and turned out to be a really good game. What we thought could have been kind of a low-scoring game ended up being very, very entertaining and quite productive from a fantasy output. JSN, Mbuka, Sam Darnold. If again, Superflex format, if you had to start Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield got there. Rachaad White fell into the end zone. You had Zach Charbonnet fall in the end zone. Kenneth Walker, not quite as good, but Tampa Bay is not the easiest team to run against overall. So your expectations had to be a little tempered. But realistically, you're pretty happy with that. Maybe you wanted Chris Godwin to get a little bit more, right? If you were having to start him and put him in your flex spot, you're kind of hoping for a little bit more his second week back. But we'll see how that rolls out. Hopefully, help is on the way, right? There's rumors that Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, and George Kittle could all be back this week to help some teams that had lost those guys earlier on in the season. So fingers crossed we get those guys back in our fantasy lineups and they can continue to produce for us. So no Lamar Jackson, it sounds like. We know Chuba Hubbard's down another week. Rico Dowdle's already banging the drum for the revenge game against the Cowboys. I don't know if putting bulletin board up on against your former team's a good thing, right? Like Micah Parsons didn't have a great game against the Cowboys, and the boys have been good against the run this year, right? They've held Saquon. They kept Breece Hall in check for the most part against the Jets. Like the running is even Josh Jacobs. They held in check for the most part against the Packers. Like the run game's not what's killing the Cowboys defensively. No. It's the deep crossing routes, right? The deep posts or the deep corners where you're flashing in front of the safety's face or you're splitting the safeties and they're not communicating, right? Like that's what we've seen beat the Cowboys so far this year. So if you have Dowdle, you're starting him after what he did last week because he's the only guy in town for Carolina right now as far as volume goes. But I think you need to temper your expectations because I would be willing to bet that he's under 100 yards rushing against the Cowboys after surpassing 200 yards this past week against Miami.
Right. It's certainly a good option there, especially if you've got some of the other running backs that went down, or if you had to make that pivot, right? Like still worth a shot and better than some of the other options that might be out there. But yeah, the certainly an interesting deal there, right? I did see too that the league brought down some fines for the head coach of the Cardinals, Gannon, after some sideline deals after the DeMarcado whoopsie daisy. I think is probably the best way to classify that as a whoopsie daisy. Yeah, which is
and I guess I missed that. I saw the fine come through, but I think I missed him kind of dressing down DeMarcado. What is it? Did it deserve the fine? Like, did you happen to see that? Is it as bad as?
I didn't see it on that. I just happened to kind of read what happened after the fact type of thing, which,
Okay,
yeah, without seeing the video, it's hard to take somebody else's account for it. You know
gotcha.
what I mean? So, um, but yeah, it is one of those that it's an unfortunate play, and willing to bet that if he's ever in that position again, that the Paul has two hands on it as you go over the goal line.
Damn Skippy.
So, but yeah, interesting deal there. We'll get into some of this, but any other kind of news notes? Anything else you want to hit up?
Um, I think before we get started, right? Bye weeks this week, right? So we have Minnesota on a bye. Um, that's the main. Who else is on a bye? Derek. Minnesota's the main one, just because I have so many Vikings on my teams. It seems like
Houston and Minnesota are the two teams on by
Houston
this
and
week.
Minnesota. Okay, so you're losing Nico, you're losing Jefferson, Addison. Again, super flex
Hawkinson,
formats. Hawkinson, super flex formats. You're losing possibly CJ Stroud, right? If you're trotting him out there. Woody Marks is a guy that caught a lot of fanfare 2 weeks ago. Kind of disappointed last week in the big blowout win against the Ravens. So not at the
Nico
very top
Collins,
end with
yeah.
Nico and Jefferson, right at the very top end are the guys that are probably going to be most missed this week. Outside of that, you most likely have some sort of pivot for the week. Maybe you didn't grab a great backup for Hawkinson, right? So you might be streaming tight end for a week. Otherwise, you're filling in at the receiver position, trying to scrape by.
Absolutely. So yeah, it'll be at least this week. It's not near the monster type of deal here with only two teams on bye. Um, so it'll be probably a little bit easier to navigate than some other weeks there. But if you were a team that somehow managed to get a couple of those guys on the rosters, it certainly can be a um, bit tough there. So,
Yep.
yeah, let's go ahead and any other news notes that you want to hit up here, or should we head to the chat?
Let's see. Terry McLaurin's another receiver that the
Mhm.
Commanders are saying they're optimistic that he's coming back. I'm sitting him this week because it's the Monday night game. Like I don't want to get pinched. So unless you're playing in a league that does the auto sub if the guy's out, right? Like if that is a league function, I know Sleeper's offering it. I don't. The ESPN's not. I'm not sure about Yahoo, CBS, or anything like that. So if your league offers that function and you feel like you need to play Terry McLaurin, I get it. But if your league doesn't offer that function, with them being the Monday night game this week, full transparency, I am not going to play McLaurin this week and get caught with a late Monday night bench. I will, deal with whatever I need to and move on for this week.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, and I was trying to see if there was any other kind of news notes that kind of came up there as well. But I'm not really kind of seeing anything there. It does look like Christian Watson had his pup practice window opened up. Brock Bowers was another one that was kind of a late scratch on Sunday,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that killed me in our zombie league.
right.
Luckily, I'm the zombie, but I mean, still, I should have won that week. I took a goose egg because, oh yeah, we're sure he's gonna play. We're sure he's gonna play, and then he doesn't play, and I didn't even go back and check that roster. I was like, son of a gun.
Right. So, yeah, the some of those are a bit fun for sure. But yeah, I've had kind of mixed feelings so far on that auto sub type of deal, and I'm still not sure kind of where I'm at on that one there. In some aspects, I kind of like it. On other aspects, I'm the traditionalist goes, I'm not a fan of it. But
I'd agree. I think it takes away some of the strategery, if you will, right? That you have to make that decision, right? Like if you're Devonta Smith or Terry McLaurin, right? Do you play Devonta Smith Thursday night, or do you cross your fingers and hope you get Terry McLaurin for Monday night, right? Something kind of like that. So it does. It forces. It makes it easy to not make a decision. You just hedge your bets. Like, oh, well, we'll just do this and kind of live with the results. But I agree. Being the traditionalist, I kind of like the idea that um, you have to make that decision and stand by it. You don't get a cop out if the guy you really want to play happens to play.
Right. So, yeah, it's been a mixed bag for me on that one for sure. So, all right. We do have Mario chiming in saying, "Good evening, fellas. Welcome in, Mario." Mario asking thoughts on Flacco going to the Bengals. Will that help Chase Brown become relevant?
I mean, I think it might help him be relevant in improved efficiency. I think that's entirely possible. The Bengals' offensive line still isn't great, right? Like now, I think it probably helps T. Higgins and Jamar Chase a bit more, honestly. But Flacco was not necessarily lighting the world on fire for the Browns like he did a couple years ago when he was with them. So it's a mixed bag, but I think their biggest thing is they need to stop the turnovers, right? The Jake Browning fourth quarter looks great for fantasy, but it's maddening if you're a Bengals fan that he just continues to put the ball in danger. And I think Flacco being the veteran, like come in, be a calming presence, stop turning the ball over, right? End each possession with a kick. The old adage. I know people go for it on fourth down more, but in general, end each possession with a kick, unless it's a fourth down play where you're actually running a play, but you're not just handing it to the other team on, second and 6, and you just make a bad decision. So I think it'll help a little bit. I don't want to give up on Chase Brown, but I'm also not starting Chase Brown right now, unless I have to. And in many cases, you might, right? Between the injuries, where you drafted him, you may not have a much better option than Chase Brown. But hopefully, if you had Chase Brown, you were able to grab a Javonte Williams late, and that kind of helps you, right? Maybe you're able to pick up Rico Dowdle off the waiver wire. Maybe, so you get a little bit of help there. Maybe you got a Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, right? And someone later to help fill in and take some of that burden away. But if you're pinched with injuries, whether it's Bucky Irving, Amarian Hampton, like Chuba Hubbard, like these running backs who are starting to get dinged up a little bit, like you just may not have a better option.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily makes him become relevant, right? Like,
I think it puts him back in solid flex territory, right? Last week I would have told you he was a fringe flex with how it'd been. I do think Flacco puts him in a solid flex territory, but if you're expecting him to be a top 20 running back now that Joe Flacco's quarterback, I guess maybe I need to specify that a little bit. Like, I don't believe that's going to happen overnight. Could we get there? Yes. But teams have to be honoring Flacco's arm and what he can do in the passing game to help out Chase Brown a little bit, because no one was respecting Jake Browning here at the moment.
No. Well,
they were just bringing pressure,
right.
playing man coverage, and jumping the routes. Like that was pretty simple what teams were doing.
Right. Well, and you mentioned it there a moment ago as well, that the offensive line isn't good. Putrid kind of comes to mind, especially when it comes to a run, a running offensive line and their ability to set the run and be able to establish the run. This isn't one of those that the Bengals relied so much on the pass. Every team having to go out there and respect Joe Burrow and being able to spread the ball around to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that opened things up for the run. Well, now it's a case where they're not necessarily having to provide near that respect on that one. So you're starting to see a lot more crowded boxes. You're seeing Chase Brown at 2.5 yards a carry right now. Joe Flacco there. Joe Flacco back there, maybe that goes up to around 3 yards a carry, which is still not good. That's still very poor efficiency there.
Yeah, you'd like for it to be 3.8
On a
plus.
minimum, yeah.
You really want it to be like 4.2, 4.3. And you get the Jonathan Taylors of the world and the guys, who are doing really well, and you're looking at 6 plus.
Right. 5, but yeah, the simple standpoint of the fact is that that's not necessarily going to change. Because that line's still not going to give Joe Flacco, a ton of time back there to go through. So you're going to have to see a lot of quick hitches,
Yeah.
which I don't. You're not going to be necessarily able to put the ball down the field enough that you're going to require the safeties and the corners to scooch back. You're going to have the linebackers playing a little bit off. Like, you're still going to see 7, 8 in the box and stacked close to the line of scrimmage, even with Flacco back there. So I don't know that it necessarily helps Chase Brown out much. I think it helps a little bit, but not to the point where we're beating the door down for him to be a top 15 running back. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think you and I are pretty well aligned on that.
All righty. The Smitty over on YouTube, what running back would you give up in a trade? Marks, Henderson, Monty, or Rachaad White?
Well,
It looks
given a
like
choice, I'm giving up Woody Marks.
Right. It looks like they're getting Josh Jacobs.
I mean, for Josh Jacobs? Like, there's got to be something else to this deal to get Josh Jacobs, right? Like,
yeah, I would
now,
agree with
if it's a receiver that he wants, right, and he just, you're trying to sweeten it and toss in a running back, I'd give up Woody Marks, right? Like, it's a split backfield. The Houston offensive line is terrible. There's going to be some weeks you're happy, some weeks you're not. Travion Henderson, I'm continuously interested in him, right? With Antonio Gibson tearing his ACL, which unfortunate, it takes another running back out of the equation in New England. So now you're probably looking at something like a 55-45 between Ramondre and Travion Henderson. And with Henderson's burst ability, again, it's intriguing. I'm not saying that he's the guy I want to play, but it gives promise. Monty, we've seen it on both sides, right? We've seen him have a couple really good weeks. We've seen him have a couple down weeks. Who knows? Rachaad White is the guy. Decent week last week. I think he'll have another decent week this week, because I don't think Bucky Irving's going to play again. And then once Bucky comes back, Rachaad White does kind of go to that irrelevant stage. So if you don't need Rachaad White for this week, maybe him, because he's only seeing about 20% of the snaps when when Bucky Irving's healthy. But I think part of that does depend on, like, is it just a running back, or are you giving up a wide receiver in tandem with one of these guys to get the deal done?
Right. And I would echo that sentiment as well, right? If you don't need Rachaad White for your starting lineup here in week 6, I'd go ahead and probably move off of him. Right. This is one that Bucky Irving's expected to miss week 5 and week 6 from all the reports I've seen. But if he's back and ready to go come week 7, week 8, you're kind of moving on there and rocking and rolling there. And once Bucky is back, I don't know that Rachaad White holds much value other than handcuff type of potential. And if you don't have Bucky Irving, the handcuff is kind of irrelevant at that point. Any other thoughts on that one?
No.
All right. Tingley saying, hey, evening, guys. Welcome in, Tingley. And this is all back to that trade. Tingley asking the question, start Chase Brown or Swift in a full point PPR?
I'm playing Swift this week against Washington. Again, we don't know who the starter for the Bengals is going to be. Coming off of a bye week, you would expect Ben Johnson to be able to put some pretty decent stuff together for the Bears. The Giants obviously are riding high with a pretty good win going into LA and beating the Chargers. Like, I think they have a lot to be happy about, but this seems like it should be a close game. It was an amazing game last year, right? This was the game that Jaden Daniels had the Hail Mary at the end. And what was it? 52 yards or 50 yards or whatever it was at the very end. That kind of gave the Bears a bit of they gave the Commanders a bit of a jolt for the rest of the season. So I expect this to be pretty close, honestly. Like, I don't think either team's necessarily going to blow the other one out, but I think coming off of a bye week, I like the idea of getting a week of rest, an extra week of planning for your opponent, a decent offensive line right now. Like, I think I like Swift more than Chase Brown this week.
Fair enough. I'm same boat, right? I'd rather have Swift than Chase Brown, right? I do think that you probably have a little bit better scoring opportunities for that DeAndre Swift and that Bears and Washington, that Bears and Manders game there. Cincinnati, Green Bay, like I don't think that Chase Brown is going to do much in that game. I'd be hard pressed to start Chase Brown even in a flex position there. But whereas DeAndre Swift, I feel pretty confident as an RB2. So that's kind of where I'm at there. Tingley, any other thoughts on that one?
No, I don't believe so.
All righty. Kendall Jazz over on YouTube saying half point PPR, thinking of dropping Troy Franklin for Mason Taylor. Good or no?
I don't hate that. If you're needing some tight end help, like, I don't mind that. Mason Taylor was pretty heavily involved against the Cowboys. The negative game script definitely helped that, but I don't think that it's going to be a whole lot different against the Broncos this week in London. The Jets are just not a good football team right now. They're trying to figure their lives out, but offensively, they're just not putting it together. Defensively, there's tons of kind of a lapse in mental clarity, it seems like, from that unit right now. So it's putting a lot of pressure on the offense. So I don't hate adding Mason Taylor if you have Mark Andrews, if you have an Evan Ingram, if you're trying to sub it out for TJ Hawkinson this week, right? Because he's on a bye. Like, I understand all the reasons of needing this tight end. So I don't hate it.
Right. I'm kind of in that same boat, right? It really just kind of depends upon what you need for your roster construct. If you need the wide receiver depth, I like the Troy Franklin side of things. If you're needing tight end, Mason Taylor certainly appears to be a pretty good option there. And I just want to say shout out to us. Last week on the week 5 waiver wires, we were telling folks that Mason Taylor was a stash kind of candidate then. So certainly appeared to have been a good call here, an even better call here after week 5 games happened out there. So, but yes, I would agree with that it very much just depends on roster construct and what you need. Millie Mills saying, what's up, fellas? How about a Jaylen Warren? Is he a Chase Brown filler?
Yeah. I mean, if Warren's playing, right, the knee's not swollen anymore, he's seeing plenty of volume. Like, it doesn't sound super sexy, and maybe at name value you don't love it, but Jaylen Warren is more productive than Chase Brown is at the moment. So, yes, I would tell you that is an absolute filler if you don't want to deal with the Chase Brown headache.
Right. And if Chase Brown doesn't go, Kenneth Gainwell maybe more confident starting Kenneth Gainwell if Jaylen Warren misses this week than Chase Brown, to be perfectly honest. Like, and that just sounds gross saying it, but if Warren misses, I'd still probably lean the Kenneth Gainwell side over Chase Brown for this week. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All righty. The Smitty saying that it is a 2 QB league and they're giving up a quarterback and a running back. Okay.
But
and Jordan chiming in saying, sup, good old boys. Not much, Jordan.
Hold on. Go back. What quarterback are we giving up?
Does not say. So the Smitty, if you can toss that in there, let us know what QB you're tossing in there
Because
with
if you
the.
have to start two, that puts a pretty high premium on quarterbacks, regardless of what other position you're trying to get. So I just want to make sure we're not overpaying here.
So I like it. So the Smitty, let us know who what the quarterback is as part of the deal too, if you would. Alrighty. And while we're waiting for the Smitty to chime in with that, let's go ahead and take a look here at the Thursday night game here. And Thursday night you've got the Philadelphia and New York meeting, right? The Eagles and the Giants squaring away here. Any thoughts here for the Thursday night game?
I'm interested to see how Philadelphia bounces back, right? And the Giants both, right? Both suffered defeats last week. Philadelphia's was, I guess, much more of an upset than what the Giants were, but a lot of people had the Giants winning that game against New Orleans. So I'd say disappointing for both clubs. But for Philly in general, like you have to find some offensive rhythm, and they just haven't found that yet. One week they're forcing passes, right? Last week, the Broncos. You're forcing passes against the Broncos, and you're not giving Saquon the ball. The weeks leading up, you're trying to get Saquon involved, and he hasn't been able to get loose this season yet. So yes, they're 4-1, right? You can't knock the record, but it hasn't been pretty for Philadelphia, right? They've had some pretty impressive comebacks, right? The Rams game, the back and forth game with Tampa Bay. It's had to be pretty, dare I say, lucky in some regards that they haven't suffered a loss before this point. So Philly needs to show us something for the Giants. You know, it's going to be a tougher game, right? The Eagles don't give up a whole lot through the air, so Jackson Dart's going to be scrambling a little bit. I think it's going to be another high volume week for Cam Scatabo, but again, the efficiency is not there. He's seeing a ton of volume, but he's not hyper efficient with said volume, which was part of what we talked about 2 weeks ago when we had someone chiming in the comments, right, and trying to tell us that we were wrong about Cam. Like, I'm not wrong about Cam. He's yet to fall in the end zone. He's not hyper efficient. Yes, he eats up a bunch of carries, but again, you're looking at like 3.8 yards per carry for the most part. His yards after catch is pretty light. You know, he put on film that he's going to try and drop a shoulder and run you over, and the defenses are adapting to that already, right? You just hit him in the knees.
Right.
Like, he can't lower his shoulder if you're taking out his legs.
Scatabo has managed to get in the end zone a couple of times on the season early on. One against Dallas. Yeah, one against Dallas and one against Kansas City.
Okay, but not as the start. Yes. So I apologize. Yes, not since he took over the starting role. You're right. He did fall in early. I apologize.
Right. So but yeah, since kind of having that backfield to himself, it certainly has not been a model of efficiency there. And yeah, I do think that the Giants are going to start seeing a tougher road as both Scatabo and Jackson Dart start getting some film on them, and you start seeing these teams start prepping a little bit differently for those for that there, right? I don't know that gets easier. I think it gets harder as we see that play out there. But yeah, so let's see what else we got. The other thing too that I was going to ask you, right? Because this is one that we've kind of talked back and forth on is this right? So mentioning Philadelphia there and how that kind of looks and works and some of the struggles that they've had. This is also a team that you don't necessarily the locker room doesn't sound like a team that's, and the reports that you hear coming out of that camp there doesn't sound like a team that's coming off of a Super Bowl victory and is 4-1 5 weeks into the season, right? There's a lot of dissension. At least it's reported out there. about players not happy with their roles in the in this, that, and the other. You've got a new offensive coordinator that the reports are still learning how to try and call a game. So it's very interesting to kind of see some of those things kind of floating out there on a Philadelphia team that's managed to win and get through. But the other thing too is this the one that we can finally look at it and say Bo Nix has finally beat a team that maybe he shouldn't have beaten.
Yeah, I was actually talking with some work buddies about this last night, and I think it is. I think Bo Nix is I'm going to give him credit for beating a team that he probably shouldn't have beat. Yes, I will give him credit for that because that was a big knock that I had on him coming out of college. It held up his rookie season, even though he did turn out to have a very good rookie season. They did not necessarily beat any of the playoff teams that they faced, aside from a Kansas City team that didn't play anybody the
Right.
last week of the season.
Right.
So this would be the first. I think this would be the first one, right? Like I probably would have given him half credit for the Chargers had they won that game. But this Eagles game, yes, I will absolutely give him credit for that.
I like it. Millie Mills was also chiming in on the Eagles, saying that if Lamb catches the those passes in week 1, they lose that. Could be. And Millie asking, do you believe? Millie does.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I believe, but I'm optimistic.
There we go. I like it. Millie was asking the question, or stating that they dropped Kyler this morning because Love off his bye, and I'm going to grab Penix for QB2. Kyler gave me 15 points with a rushing tutty and had to go. He ain't cutting it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's been a little rough this season for sure. Smokey the Cat over on YouTube stating that Pacheco was dropped in a 12-team PPR. Is he worth waiver number 1? I wouldn't say so, but your thoughts?
I think it depends on what your roster is looking like, right? Like if you just lost Hampton, or if you're down Bucky Irving again, or if you're down Chuba, like if you need running back help, it's not sexy, but is he worth waiver 1 over Haskins for the Chargers or Vidal? Like, do we really know how that backfield's going to get split out? I think it's going to be Haskins seeing the majority of the work, but I think Vidal showed a little bit better last game against the Commanders. So it's not pretty, and the run game for the Chiefs hasn't been a whole hell of a lot better. So
if Kareem Hunt's out there, I'd rather have Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. If Kareem Hunt's out there, I would agree. I think I would rather have Kareem Hunt. Yeah, that's a tough one. Like him or Hassan Haskins. Like I think I'm going Haskins just because the Chargers do want to run the ball more, but I'm not going to argue necessarily for either side.
Right. And I think you're probably right there. I think what this Chargers backfield will look like, I think we'll probably see Haskins get the first and second down work. We'll see Vidal come in and the passing work on that one. And we'll see Haskins likely be the goal line type of back there as well, right? Just from a frame and from a makeups, from a frame and a body standpoint, he is the much bigger back between the two of them, and he's got that between the tackles thumper type of style. So I think that's probably how we'll see this one break out between those two. But with the Chargers having thrown the ball like they are, very well could be split enough to the point where we don't necessarily see a ton of that. But at the same time, too, right? Like Patrick Mahomes is oftentimes is the leading rusher for the Chiefs at the end of the game. So there is that to take into consideration as well.
Yes.
Nino saying my flex spot has been looking ugly with guys like Elick, Pacheco, Harvey getting the spot. But would you go as far as using the number one waiver wire priority to pick up Mason as a new flex over them guys? I'm not a big fan of putting a tight end at my flex, to be perfectly honest with you. But that also depends too on what your other options are there. What are your thoughts around this one?
Yeah, that's tough, right? I think the first question is it a tight end premium, right? Do you get an extra half a point or full point for tight end receptions? If so, I think that gives me a little bit more leeway to start Mason Taylor. Again, not the easiest matchup against the Broncos. Pacheco, Elick, Emanora. I think I'm probably giving Elick one more shot just because Harvey's really not seeing a whole lot of touches. Like maybe you're hoping for garbage time work, right? Kind of a couple, like 2 weeks ago, where he gets some run in the fourth quarter for Harvey. Pacheco's, Rashard Smith is getting involved. You have Kareem Hunt involved. Like, so I think for me, it's probably between Elick and Mason Taylor. Maybe I don't love it, but Mason Taylor's on the heater, right? Like he has the last 2 weeks, he's been much more involved.
Right.
And the Broncos pass rush is really good. So if you're looking for a quick outlet, Mason Taylor is going to see more opportunities. So maybe I am talking myself into this Mason Taylor pick, Derek.
You may have started talking me into it as well. I would lean more the Elick side of things, but that Tennessee game, right? You would have had you told me that Tennessee was going to go out and beat Arizona and you know they were going to have a come behind victory to do it as well. I would have told you that Elick probably had 50 or 60 yards and just wasn't the case, and oftentimes wasn't really much of a even a threat in that game. So yeah, that is kind of interesting to see that one, and you may have talked me into it with the simple standpoint that Mason Taylor has certainly been involved on that one. Again, I'm not a big fan of starting a tight end in the flex, just from the standpoint they're usually so touchdown dependent. But basically, every one of these other guys that you've got in here are touchdown dependent as well. So Mason Taylor will likely see more volume than any of these other guys listed. So yeah, you talked me into it. I'm going to say you talked me into it.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel great, right?
No,
Like
it does not. So, all right, Millie Mills saying, so you're Matistic.
yeah, I was trying to think of something I could say to play into that, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue like a bow leave for sure.
Right. Yeah, there's something to be desired there.
So yeah, it was that was a rough one trying to read it. I'm not gonna lie. So, but interesting there for sure. Millie Mills, yeah, throwing the laughing emoji up there for us. So appreciate that. Billy saying it was harder trying to type it. I don't know. That pronunciation was pretty rough there, my friend. So, but yeah. So with that, and guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and throw those in the chat. We can certainly rock and roll through that. Any other kind of thoughts here on on potential guys that maybe on the waiver wire that are that should be rostered or should be maybe targeting or guys that maybe pivoting off of?
I mean, potentially Theo Johnson, as far as tight end goes, right? As you're looking at him, um, if trying to think here. Mason Taylor, Kendre Miller's another guy, right? Like I think that's interesting. Obviously, Haskins that we talked about. Josh Downs is a guy who's still out there for the Colts. Like it's not super sexy, but like there's still some really good possibility there. A lot of people this is kind of sneaky, but a lot of people dropped Pittsburgh and Green Bay's defense because they're on a bye last week. So I think that's something that you could definitely look at if you were needing some defensive help there. Christian Kirk saw a decent amount of volume for the Texans. He's on a bye this week, but he's a guy that is, since he's not going to be showing up in the projections, a lot of people don't scroll down far enough. So Christian Kirk's kind of a deeper stash, if you will. Maybe a Taysom Hill. Again, just kind of off the wall tight end help if you're really needing that. So there's some options out there, right? Like, they're not super sexy, but you do what you got to do, right? Like, you got to get by.
Right, and certainly starting to get into that injury plagued part of the season that it is becoming that for sure. So
yes,
awesome. And Millie Mills saying thoughts on AJ Barner, that Millie likes him for Seattle. I think that's what they are missing.
It's just not super consistent, right? Like, he's gotten into the end zone a couple times, and so that's helped his overall fantasy output, but it's not consistent production. So if you're willing to ride the lows with the high, then yeah, he's kind of a sneaky high upside tight end play because he does get some red zone targets. But if he's not getting those red zone targets, he doesn't put up enough. Otherwise he's like 2 for 22. And then that's his stat line. So if you're okay with 4 points in a full point PPR setup, then okay, fine. If you want more than 4 points, I would, as a floor, I would look somewhere else.
Right. AJ Barner is an interesting one because he is seen about 80% of the snap share in 4 of the 5 games that he's played, which certainly would put him as, kind of the Seahawks starting tight end. The problem is that Seattle want to throw the ball unless they absolutely have to. So that, that just kind of goes into your point there that the floor is low, right? Like, you could very well walk out of there with a 4-point deal. And you're kind of that epitome of a touchdown dependent type of tight end on that, which at least when they seem to get into the red zone, he at least gets a few looks here and there. Because he does have, quite a few touchdowns here over the last little bit. But again, this is a guy that is touchdown dependent for his production there. So if he's not scoring touchdowns, he's going to give you a tight end 25, tight end 30 on the week. Like, he'll be down there towards the end, but if he falls in the end zone, he'll get you a top 10. Like, that's just kind of where it believes. And I think that's where we need to look at him as well, is that if you really think that Seattle's going to put up a ton of points and they're going to be throwing the ball when they get down there in the red zone to, at that point, sure, AJ Barner's a terrific pickup. Or if you think that this is one of those that, part of the reason that the stats are looking like they are is because of some of the game script that's happened in the last few weeks and having to try and rock and roll some things there, you're not necessarily that happy with that. So, any other thoughts on this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. Well, I do believe that takes us down here to the end of the chat, and we'll start kind of calling it a night here. And if anybody else has some other questions, concerns, comments, they can certainly put them out there, and we can rock and roll through that. But while we're waiting, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Good luck in week 6, right? We're a little over the quarter way mark. Obviously, there's still some things that everybody's trying to get worked out and understand here coming up for the stretch of bye weeks and everything else. But I think there's cause for optimism in certain regards, right? You got some people coming back from injury. You got maybe you're going up against a team that's pretty stacked, but they're going to be dealing with the bye week chaos, and so maybe you can get them kind of as they're down a little bit, if you will. So don't panic, right? There's still time, but if you didn't get the best start, now's definitely the time. Like, you're trying to make trades, right? Like, you're trying to make a trade. You're trying to understand, like, what is the best move possible for your team to be able to get through the bye weeks and, try and reposition yourself for playoffs already, right? Like, we're already kind of talking about that. But if you started out at, 1-4 through 5 weeks, like, we need to reevaluate a little bit, right? We just hunker down, and here we go.
Absolutely. So certainly yes, a lot of fantasy left to be played there, right? And with bye weeks and injuries, as we've started to see, right, anything can happen on any given week. And even if you got off to not necessarily the best start, there are still maneuvers to make, and it's all about that grind and working your way towards the playoffs. Because once you get into that week 15, it's typically 3 games that you got to win. So that's where it comes down to, is the rest of the season is putting your place in a place to be able to play in week 15 and win in weeks 15, 16, 17 and take home that cash and trophies. One more question coming in here. John asking if we trade Mahomes and Jacoby Myers for Lamar.
I would be very cautious about this because of the soft tissue injury. Like, so Lamar is most likely out this week. So there's another week you're dealing without Lamar, and then when he comes back, is he going to run as much? Again, they're dealing with a ton of injuries on the defensive side, so the more that Baltimore has to pass, the more that they face a pass rush, which means the more Lamar has to move around the pocket and scramble because their run game is not as deceptive or efficient. So it's a big snowball. I think right now, with coming into bye weeks and the injuries and everything else, I want depth. And so I would rather have Mahomes and maybe take a slight hit on the upside. But again, Mahomes is getting Rashee Rice back too, and I think that will help immensely with him and Worthy being on the field at the same time. And then also being able to plug Jacoby into a flex spot if you need him. So I don't think I would do this just yet. If you were in dire straits, maybe, but if that's what you're trading, I don't feel like you are. Like, Mahomes has been good enough for your team.
Right. I mean, Mahomes is right behind Josh Allen by 2.6 points total on the fantasy side of things, right? Like, that's a half a point per game on the season, right? So it's, yeah, even when Lamar's playing, Mahomes is 0.1 point behind Lamar on a games played average for fantasy scoring. Like, this isn't a I don't know that I'm necessarily making this move. Plus, one of them's healthy and one of them's not. So I would probably stand put on that one and probably take the Mahomes side there as well. Millie Mills chiming in saying that this is the best late night fantasy show on the tube. Appreciate that. Millie saying that they whooped on a opponent this week, didn't even start a tight end. It was on purpose because they weren't dropping Kraft or Pitts. But the but the crazy part is that they told the manager they weren't going to start a tight end and would still beat them. So,
hey, more power to you, dude.
Right, the gamesmanship of calling your shot there, I like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty. Thomas over on YouTube saying the QBs are Mayfield and Herbert. Wide receivers are Adams, T-Mac, Olave, Rice. Running backs Gibbs, Brown, Henderson, Stevenson. Tight end McBride and Kraft. Can you set my lineup with 1 QB, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex, half point PPR, Kraft versus Bengals?
Okay, let's start at the beginning here. So for the quarterback position, I think I'd play Herbert this week against a really bad Miami defense as opposed to Baker against San Francisco, right? San Francisco has been injured. Yes, they're traveling to Tampa Bay, but with Hampton going down, there is a very high possibility that we're going to see the Chargers really open up this offense and air it out, kind of how it was the first 2 weeks. And if that's the case, I'm taking the path of least resistance, and that's Miami. So I guess step number one for me would be Herbert. You can't play Rice this week, right?
Yep.
So he's out. So I would tell you that you're playing all three of your wide. And I need to clarify: is T-Mac Tet McMillan or Terry McLaurin?
I'm reading that as Tet McMillan is how I would read that one.
Okay. If it's McMillan, then yes, you're playing all three receivers. So your 2 wide receivers and your flex spot. I would play tight end. I think you have to play McBride. The Kyler injury is a little funky, but you're against Indianapolis. I think you're right there. Cincinnati's not far behind, though. There's just so many weapons for Green Bay. Sometimes it's hard to bank on Tucker Kraft, especially when you have a Trey McBride. Like, this is why you drafted him in the second round. Like, you just kind of have to play him. And so that would lean running back. So obviously Gibbs is in.
Yep.
Slam dunk. And so then do you want a Patriot running back or do you want to go with Chase Brown? Like, I don't. I think I don't love it. I think that against Green Bay, I think you could flip a coin and play Ramondre or Travion Henderson. Ramondre and these damn fumbles, dude, just kill me. So
Yes.
it's such a challenge. So they're all ranked right together in kind of where I have them, right? So I don't think there's much more than maybe a total point between all three of them by the time it's said and done with. If you need some upside, Henderson's your play. One could argue Stevenson's seeing more goal line work, but if he fumbles one more time, like, how many of these is Vrabel going to stand? Like, and I guess I just open that to the group. Like, how many fumbles is Mike Vrabel going to let Ramondre Stevenson have before he just says, screw this, go with the rookie? Like, stop putting the football on the ground.
Right.
So that was the hardest out of all of it, man. The rest of your roster, Thomas, I like. I think it, obviously maybe you want a bit more strength at the top end of your receiving core. This is the downside of taking a tight end early. But all things considered, Jesus, I'm going to lean Henderson and go the upside here. But if you have a differing opinion, Derek, like, I am more than happy to hear that out.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Herbert side. The Baker side is really close there on that one, but cosign on that one. That matchup against Miami does it for me with the Herbert, so I'm leaning that way. I like the call on Adams and T-Mac or Tet McMillan there as your wide receiver 1-2. I think both of those guys are set for some pretty good games this week, right? Tet gets Dallas, Devontae Adams against a very banged up Baltimore offense or defense there. So I do think that both of those guys have good weeks, and it wouldn't surprise me to see both of those guys top 15 weekly finish here. Running back Gibbs a no-brainer. I'm not a fan of the Chase Brown. With this week on this one, right? They get up against Green Bay. It's a tough matchup. We may see quarterback change here. We may see some different things. I would go with one of the running backs in New England there. Personally, I would probably lean the Ramadre side of things because he is getting it does appear to be getting a bit more on the goal line work. But if somebody wanted to go with the Henderson side, I'm, not gonna fight anybody on that one because both of these guys are going to probably see a total of maybe 10 touches total if they're lucky on this one. Like this is a very much a split backfield between the two of them, and you're banking on either Henderson's got to break a long one and get in the end zone on that, or Ramadre I think probably gets one or two carries down in the kind of that 5 zone and may sneak into the end zone that way. But it's a coin flip between the two of them for me. I would go with the Trey McBride side of things. Thomas did ask if they should flex in Kraft or McBride into that. I would still leave the Chris Olave side of it. I'd play McBride at the tight end, and then I like my chances of Olave over Kraft. So, let's see. Saying that the Chargers O-line is banged up. They did confirm that it is Tet. They do like the fact that Kraft's playing the Bengals and the Cincy defense is so bad. They are bad, but Thomas, the problem that you also have in there, right? Kevin mentioned all the weapons that that Green Bay has. So if it doesn't necessarily go Kraft's way, or the other option is that Green Bay jumps up by 3 touchdowns, this might just become a Josh Jacobs 30 carry type of game, right? Like and Tucker Kraft sees 3 to 4 targets. Like that's very much in the realm of possibilities there as well.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts on that one?
No. I think again, you and I are pretty well aligned. It's close, but yeah, just flip a coin.
So, and Thomas saying that they don't know if they can leave Kraft on the bench against Cincy. They're last against tight ends and leave so much open over the middle.
That's okay. Go for it. Like they're not that far apart. So don't feel like you're making a drastic change. They're not that far apart in rankings. So I think that you can absolutely play Tucker Kraft against a really bad Bengals defense and feel confident about that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you're probably talking Trey McBride. I've got him as my tight end 1 on this week. Tucker Kraft, call it tight end probably 4 on the week. So, I mean, they're both going to have good weeks, but if I'm leaning towards it, I lean the Trey McBride. But Thomas, it is your roster to manage. So if you've got a feeling and you want to go that route, not going to blame anybody for taking that shot there as well. So. Any other thoughts on this question?
No.
All right. George Play. Hey guys, should I add Tyrone Tracy, Haskins, or Vidal?
I would give the slight nod to Haskins, then Vidal, and then Tyrone Tracy.
I would agree. And very much to the kind of that breakdown I gave earlier as far as what I think is going to happen with this Chargers running back room here until Hampton returns off of IR. Millie asking, so should we sell Kraft then?
I don't know that I'd sell Kraft. Depends on, I guess it depends on what you can get with him. Oh yeah, start Kraft. To go with that second part, you're starting Kraft over Pitts this week. Absolutely.
Right. Millie, it's one of those, I was illustrating the point that could happen, right? Like that's very much in the realm of possibilities. Cincinnati jumps up, Green Bay jumps up on Cincinnati big, and it becomes a Josh Jacobs side of it. But that being said, I would absolutely, if I've got both of those on my roster, I'm absolutely taking the shot on Tucker Kraft over Kyle Pitts because I like the upside on that one, and I would, Tucker Kraft's been on a heater. I would ride the heater over Kyle Pitts going through that. So. Not to necessarily, move off of that one, go through that. I do think Tucker Kraft does have right in my own rankings. I'm going to have Tucker Kraft as a top 5 tight end on this week. Kyle Pitts maybe sneaks in towards the back end of tight end 1, right? Like tight end 11, 12, 13, kind of in that range. So that's kind of how I would see that and how I'd play that one out. So I wouldn't necessarily, take that to a point where I'm endorsing Kyle Pitts over Tucker Kraft this week, if that makes sense. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All right, awesome. Thomas saying that they appreciate the time and the thoughts. And Jordan asking Goddard or Kraft rest of the season. That's a real easy Tucker Kraft for me.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft.
All right. The Dallas Goddard side, and we've talked about this one over the last few weeks there. Dallas Goddard and that Philly offense. Yeah, Dallas Goedert's ceiling for touchdowns has typically been about 4 touchdowns a season, and we're already at 4 touchdowns on this young season here. So, I don't know. I think Philly's got a lot of figuring things out to do on the offensive side of the ball, and I do like Kraft much more rest of the season on that one. Thomas saying Kraft is top 3 because the matchup in their opinion. I could see it. So not gonna argue with anybody on that one. I like I said, I think I probably have Jake Ferguson from a volume standpoint, and maybe Tyler Warren ahead of Kraft, but they're all very close, like within probably about a point of each other. So, any other thoughts on that one?
No, sir.
All right, Millie Mills, but you got to think about that Green Bay offense. They got guys everywhere. Yep, that's true.
We are, and they do, and we are, but Love has shown that he's not going to forget about Tucker Kraft.
Right.
And Kraft has shown that he can get down that seam route and get chunk plays, right? Like it's not just 5-yard ins and then he falls down. Like Tucker Kraft will line up, I guess, offline, right? Not often, but he will line up offline. And if they can get the running game going in Green Bay, it's only going to help some of that. So you're good. And with, again, tight end's hard, right? The tight end position is hard. Brock Bowers has been dinged up. It's not what it's supposed to be. Trey McBride, who I thought would run away with the number 1 overall tight end spot, can't get in the freaking end zone. Like, it's frustrating. It's maddening.
Mm-hmm.
You have a week of Sam Laporta being damn near non-existent, and then he finds himself in the end zone, so he's back up there, right? Tyler Warren came out of the gates the first couple weeks and then fell back down to earth. Like Jake Ferguson was drafted in the 10th round or later in some instances, and he's just been a target monster because of the CeeDee Lamb injury. Like tight end, every year we go in and we look at the tight end line and we go, oh, okay, tight end's not that bad this year. And then we get into it and go, God, tight end sucks. Like Mark Andrews, bad. Evan Ingram, bad. Like Zach Ertz, worthless. Dallas Goedert scoring touchdowns out of nowhere. Like it's great for now until it's not. And it's only a matter of time before we see 3 catches for 12 yards out of Dallas Goedert. Like we know this is coming. Right? Theo Johnson was great for a couple weeks, but now last few he's fallen back down to earth, as we talked about last week with Taysom Hill coming back and Foster Moreau. So tight end's tough, but I'd rather take a tight end on a decent offense like Green Bay. Like they're going to throw the ball. Jordan Love's looking pretty good this year. Than take another flyer on someone that I'm just hoping hits. Like Kraft has a much safer floor.
I like it. Jason saying if Sticky Ricky is out, who to start? Wan'Dale Robinson or Shakir? Also got Pollard in my flex. Will you start him or start both Wan'Dale and Shakir? They said Steelers will get more work.
I would agree. Tajay is going to see a little bit more work. Tony Pollard has not been hyper efficient. The touchdown kind of saved his week last week. I mean, if Ricky Parasol's out, I I think I'm going to lean with Shakir, but it wouldn't surprise me if in a PPR league, Wan'Dale Robinson ends up with maybe a couple more catches, right? Like short, quick routes to get Jackson Dart kind of in a rhythm. Again, Philadelphia does not give it up against the pass a whole heck of a lot, right? Denver hit one big play really, and that was kind of it in the passing game. Um, Outside of that, it's just kind of been ho hum, and they've limited everybody. Like it just hasn't seemed to matter. So I think Wandell probably sees more targets and maybe another reception or two. I think Shakir probably all the way around, just because Buffalo is going to be having a bit of an easier time and they're coming off a loss. So I think they're going to be motivated. So I'm going to lean Shakir, but I'm not going to hate anybody if they want to play Wandell.
Cosign, right? I think that Shakir is probably about a point ahead on this on that one this week, and I really don't like the matchup that Wandell's got here, and I would still go with Pollard over either one of those in your flex.
Yeah, barely, but yeah.
Jason, as saying, start two between Pittman, Jalen Waddle, Rico, Jalen Warren.
This is a good problem to have here, Jason.
Right.
So, man, what am I gonna do?
So I am gonna try and ride the hot hand with Rico as one of them. And then I think I probably lean the Jalen Waddle side just ever so slightly. I think Miami's going to get down and have to throw the ball to try and get back in that game.
Yeah, out of the running backs, I like Rico over Jalen Warren because he's not splitting time. So I like that aspect of it. I think I would go with Pittman and Jalen Waddle as opposed to Rico. Like, again, you don't beat the Cowboys on the ground. Their run defense is not like out of this world great, but it's much improved, and they've limited some pretty good running backs. Maybe the revenge factor plays in. So yes, Rico has some upside and some pizzazz, but I think I would lean Pittman and Waddle this week. But Rico's a very close second to Waddle, and I say Waddle because you never know who Tua is going to throw to. Like, I just don't trust this Miami offense right now. So if I'm going to make a decision, for me, it's going to be between Rico or Jalen Waddle, and I'm definitely playing Pittman because his role is defined. We understand what that role is. We just saw Calvin Ridley make an appearance for the first time all season. There's no reason to think that Michael Pittman can't have a similar type week. And with Miami, they could just easily go to Malik Washington 15 times this week. Like, you just don't know what you're getting with Mike McDaniels right now. Like, he's run his course in Miami. They need to find something else because he's run his course and it's not working.
Fair enough. Start one at the tight end. Ertz with 0 with a goose egg last week. Njoku, Theo Johnson, Tongs, or AJ Barner.
So
for me, what?
No, you're good. I'm thinking myself more than anything.
For me, I would go with the Njoku side of things. Right, like we did see the change at quarterback happen here. Njoku certainly was the more heavily targeted tight end there. Did manage to get in the end zone, but more so than that, we saw 90 plus. He was on the field for 90+% of the snaps, and so I do think that there's a fair bit to that we'll see him continue to kind of separate himself out there as the tight end of choice in Cleveland here as the weeks continue.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can buy that. I think think Njoku is probably the right call. I would go Theo Johnson next, even though it's a tough Philadelphia matchup. I think that's where I would lean next. Jake Tongs, again, we have not seen George Kittle get, I guess, brought off of IR, but there's rumblings that he's going to. So I'd hate to tell you Jake Tongs and then Kittle plays and it throws that into complete chaos. AJ Barner's interesting for sure, but I think I'm going Njoku.
Fair enough. Jason said start one between Swift, White, Rico, Carter, Myers, Terry. The team is too deep.
Shit.
Yeah.
Swift, Shard White, Rico, Carter. So Carter, Myers, and Terry McLaurin are all out. I don't want to chance the injury that he's not guaranteed to play on Monday night because it gives you nothing to pivot to. So Terry McLaurin's out. Jacoby Myers, no, because this Raiders offense has been absolutely atrocious. Even with Brock Bowers banged up, Myers can't go off.
Right.
So I don't want any part of that. Michael Carter, no, thank you. So really Swift, White, or Rico, and we're looking to start one. Man, I think I'm leaning Swift, but I might be on an island. Like, I understand a lot of people are going to want to piggyback off of this Rico Dowdle big game. Like, so the volume will be there, and I understand that, but I don't know. White, I'm hedging away from if I have an option just because the Niners. So I would go Swift over Rico, but I know a lot of people would tell me they're going the other way.
Yeah, Swift and Rico are kind of back to back for me, and really could kind of coin flip that. Rico with that hot game last week, right? As you mentioned before, Dallas doesn't necessarily give up a ton on the the ground there. Let's see here. And Dallas has been giving up points to opposing fantasy running backs this week, right? Or this year. Breece Hall, 113 yards against him. Josh Jacobs, 86. And then Josh Jacobs also put up 71 receiving yards. DeAndre Swift had 88 yards. Saquon went up for about 84. I mean, they're allowing on average about 18.5 points to opposing fantasy running backs, with a lot of those running backs getting points through the air on that. So that does play into that. I do like the Rico side, but I can also see the Swift side here as well, from the standpoint that, right, I do think that Ben Johnson will have come up with something coming off the bye to try and keep moving this team forward. And I think this one is tough for me. They are back to back, and it is a coin flip for me between Swift and Rico this week. So there you go, Jason. I kind of gave you a wishy-washy answer, and Kevin's on the Swift side of things there. Jason saying start one between Juwan Johnson, Mason Taylor, Tongs, and AJ Barner. I think I'm leaning the Mason side.
I think I am too. I want to play this hot hand a little bit and see. Again, tough matchup in Europe against the Broncos. But he's been targeted a lot here these last couple of weeks. And so I think I'm going to take my chance on Mason Taylor.
Yeah, I would as well, right? Heavily involved. Juwan Johnson, you mentioned it before about the Saints in that tight end room. Tongs, right? We could see Kittle back, and AJ Barner, touchdown dependent. So I think I like the volume of Mason. Mario, is Christian Watson the wide receiver we all need to pick up and stash?
No.
Agreed. So a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Packers just have so many weapons, and a guy that's coming off of a major injury. right? I want to see what they look like when they're back on the field. I want to see how they're
And he hasn't been able to stay healthy after an injury. Like,
correct.
no, thank you. Like, this is not where I'm pushing my chips in.
So, Thomas saying that they have Ted McMillan and McBride and Chase Brown and Olave. The team has target monsters, but none of them score TDs. They drafted too many floor guys.
Well, I mean, we didn't know what the touchdown aspirations for Ted McMillan were, right? Like we talked about that. If he'd get to 8, we'd feel pretty happy. Chase Brown scored some touchdowns last year. This is just a down year. He's underperforming from where you drafted him. McBride, I would tell you that history has shown us that he does not score as many touchdowns as you would think based off of his target and reception totals over the last couple of years. So I'm not going to say that's a huge surprise, although by this point in the season, I did think he'd probably have 2 under his belt, and we're not there yet. So you're not wrong, right? There's a ton of volume. This is why touchdowns are hard to predict, right? This is why projections are just that, because we can understand usage or make educated guesses based off of offensive philosophies and formations that teams like to run, but touchdowns are so hard to guess. Like, no one would have told you that Jonathan Taylor would have, what's he have, 9 touchdowns through 5 weeks or whatever. Is it even more than that? 10 touchdowns through 5 weeks. Like, it's been crazy what Jonathan Taylor's done to get into the end zone, and no one had that on their bingo card. If they tell you it, they're lying.
Yes. Thomas say that they're dropping Tootin this week. Should I target Haskins or Kendre Miller or Vidal off of waivers?
I think the order in which you listed them is the order in which I would target them.
Cosign. Thomas saying that Waddle's a must start. Okay.
I don't agree with that.
And Big E saying that someone offered them Waddle for Chase Brown. I accepted it. It was a no-brainer, right?
I understand why. But again, I understand why. Like, Kamara and Judkins, like, I get it. I don't hate it, right? That's about as fair of a deal as you're going to get for Chase Brown right now.
Mm-hmm.
Get a number 1 receiver in return. As wishy-washy as I feel like this Miami offense is, the opportunity for Jalen Waddle is extremely high. So I don't hate that. I feel like you did the best you could.
Yeah. Certainly seems like fair value, and yeah, you've got some other running backs to rock and roll through there as well. So I don't mind it. Millie saying that they said the same thing about Michael Carter. No, thank you.
It just
yeah.
If I'm not married to this Arizona backfield, I'm not looking to get engaged to it unless I am dying somewhere.
Fair enough. Millie saying that they have love in all 4 of their leagues, and to leave Watson alone. I like Mario's response there too. Was the no, thank you to Watson. It is. Thank you, guys. All right, and I think this is going to be the last question we get to the night here. Joe over on YouTube saying that they're thin at running back. They have McCaffrey, Scattaboo, Pollard, Charbonnet, and period. But okay, I'm not sure what the question is there, Joe. If you got the,
I guess
got the
taking it for
there.
what it is, right? Like, you have the anchor with McCaffrey.
Right.
You have what at the moment is a volume sucking running back in Scatterbo, which is a good thing, right? Like, it's not meant to sound negative. It provides a safe floor. Pollard has not been hyper efficient. Maybe Tajay Spears should help that in some regards, just kind of stretches defenses out and shows them something different. Who knows? Charbonnet, he's one injury away from being at least a top 15 back with number 1 overall potential in some weeks. So maybe it's a little thin, but I'd tell you, Joe, right now everyone's thin. Like, I don't think you're going to find a much more complete running back room. So I would leave it be. Yeah, I wouldn't shop CMC right now.
Right.
Unless you're getting Jonathan Taylor. Like if you
Right.
can trade CMC for Jonathan Taylor, like straight up, I would do that. Just to avoid the injury risk of CMC. But if it's not named Jonathan Taylor, no thank you.
Yeah, I could see that. I would agree with that as well, right? Like even if you're getting 2 starters back on that one, your 2 starters, I don't know that you're necessarily gonna be able to get 2 starters that you're gonna get into the aggregate of what Christian McCaffrey's getting you for the especially with the volume that he's doing. But I do kind of like Kevin's thought that he gave you, that if you're able to shop that one and get back a Jonathan Taylor, okay. But it is tough to get a running back that that you're getting 30 opportunities a game from, and that's what Christian McCaffrey's been kind of averaging there. So does the volume concern me a bit? Yes, that's a heavy workload, and for a guy that has missed big stretches of time, does concern me a bit there. But yeah, I'm not looking to move him unless I can get a a slam dunk anchor running back as well.
Like I would want, I mean, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs and a piece, right? Like if you can get Jahmyr Gibbs and again, starting wide receiver, that if you're thin at receiver, but my guess is your receiver probably looks a little bit better than your running back room, right? Otherwise you'd be asking us about that. So
Right.
I don't know that you're gonna get to. Like unless you get Gibbs and RJ Harvey and you just hope Harvey hits later on in the season. Give you a bit of depth.
Right. James Cook and DeAndre Swift, maybe?
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind James Cook.
Like something like that. Or James Cook and like Stephon Diggs. Like I wouldn't mind something like that.
Right.
But it would have to be something that I'm taking a half of a step back at the running back and then getting another bona fide starter that can actually make a difference on my roster. That's about the only way that I would want to do that. So
Like, would you go as low as like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt after
no,
his game against the Chargers? Like, how much more confidence do you have in him after this last week?
meh on that one. Like,
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily do. It doesn't. It does a little bit for me, but it doesn't necessarily move the dial a ton there, right? Because those 2 rushing touchdowns very well could have been Jaden Daniels tucking that and running it, right? Or those being going somewhere else in the offense there. I do like the fact that, and where we've seen him have very big games, they come at just astronomical, super efficient deals there, where he's getting almost 8 yards a carry, right? Like unsustainable type of things. I don't know that we're going to necessarily see him get the volume to get to that 100 yards on a consistent basis there, right? So that does concern me a bit, right? Maybe if I'm getting Bill and a James Cook, Josh Jacobs, okay, maybe, but that's about where I'd kind of draw the line there. Like it'd have to be another like big time running back and Bill type of thing. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, that's fair. I was just kind of poking it out there.
Yeah. No, I like it. And then Thomas saying for Joe to if anything, trade Pollard and Scat for an upgrade. You might be able to do that, but again, if you're thin at running back, I don't want to do a 2-for-1 type of deal where I'm giving up 2 to upgrade a 1, because then I'm 1 injury away or a bye week away from having another issue on my hands there. Thomas saying you want to be in the 2 and a 2-for-1 almost 100% of the time in trades unless you're desperate. Yeah, there's something to that, but at the same time too, right? If you can get a haul for a player on that one and you're taking a half step back and getting another solid piece, I can see that one. Like Joe's comment here, nobody wants Pollard. I don't even think Tennessee wants him.
No, they want him.
So it made me giggle. All righty. Well, I do think that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Good luck, right, in week 6. Continue to grind away. Thank you for everyone tuning in. As always, hit us up at our socials at Good Old Boys FF. If you have any waiver wire trade lineup questions, we'll get to them just as quickly as possible. Other than that, hopefully we see everybody Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern as we go through our Friday Night Lights show and really kind of drill in on lineup questions, trade questions, that type of things. Get you set up for week 6.
Absolutely. Make sure that you're hitting the like, the subscribe button, all those good things on wherever you're consuming this at, and appreciate everybody tuning in. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.